election. This is an election that elected a man that President Biden has repeatedly referred to as an existential threat. So why is it that the American people have not heard President Biden talk about this threat since the election?
Because there was an election and the American people spoke. Mm-hmm. The will of the American people was very clear, right? And so the president is now in a situation where we have to deal with a peaceful transfer of power. We have to respect the will of the American people. And that's what you have been seeing from this president, trying to lead by example to make sure that that happens. And that's what the American people deserve. That's what the president deserved. And that's what I think he was very clear about in Rose Garden when he delivered his remarks 2 days after the election. And he said, he was very honest. He said, these, and again, I'm not quoting him exactly, but these were not the results that we had wanted, right? And that's just being honest. They weren't. But we are now in a position where he believes he has to lead by example and show what a peaceful transfer of power looks like. And so that's what you're seeing from this president. And, to the points that you made, I've been asked about existential threat. I've been asked about threat to our democracy. The president is always going to be honest with the American people. He feels like he is obligated. What he said still stands. But we are now in a different place. We are. The American people spoke. They deserve a peaceful transfer of power. That's what this president wants to do.
Does he have a message for people on what they should do about this existential threat? Assuming that he still believes Donald Trump is an existential threat.
Look, his thoughts and what he said, his thinking on that has not changed. It has not. And I think he was very clear about what he believes should have been done or how we should move forward. How, he was very clear during those moments that he spoke about it. Right now, he wants to lead by example and talk and show the American people what it looks like to have an efficient, effective transfer of power. And he believes that is what the American people deserve. And I'm just going to leave it there for now.
Yeah. He was pretty damn clear, along with all the Democrats and liberals and the media, that Donald J. Trump is a threat to our democracy. They compared him to Hitler. They made him out to be the most evil person on earth. But because the American people voted for Donald J. Trump, now all of a sudden, he's a threat in words only. So does that mean that if we, the people, had voted for a known terrorist from the Middle East, that we would go ahead and let that person take office? Or would the FBI and the Department of Justice make sure that a known terrorist that would be a threat to our democracy doesn't take office? Just like that. And this peaceful transfer of power, he wants to show us, the world, what that looks like. We've seen that with every single presidential election, to include Donald J. Trump. That's right. There was a peaceful transfer of power. Donald Trump left 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue when he was scheduled to, turning the reins over to two complete, utter idiots. You had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you very, very much. We have a lot to get into tonight. We're going to start off with what's happening with Russia at the moment. Russian president has issued a major new warning to America and all of NATO countries, following reports of Ukraine striking into Russia with Storm Shadow long-range missiles provided by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. in a television address that took place today, the Russian president said Moscow could strike the military installations of any country whose weapons were used against Russia. This could be seen as a threat against Washington and London, as it comes after an emerging U.S. President Joe Biden has allowed Kyiv to use ATACMS on targets inside the Russian territory, and following reports of British-made Storm Shadow missiles being fired into Russia. We believe that we have the right to use our weapons against military facilities of the countries that allow the use of weapons against our facilities, said the Russian President, Vladimir Putin. And in case of escalation or aggressive actions, we will respond in a major way. An attack on the UK or US would drag the world into a nuclear Armageddon of a World War III. The organization's Article 5 of the United Nations says that an attack on a single member would lead to a response by the entire alliance, meaning that if Putin attacks any NATO country, with or without nuclear weapons, we all attack them in return. During the address, Putin confirmed Russia had launched a hypersonic medium-range ballistic missile attack on Ukrainian facilities. He said, so Russia had conducted combat tests of a hypersonic missile system in response to the aggressive action of NATO countries against Russia. In response to the use of American and British long-range weapons on 21 November of this year, the Russian armed forces launched a combined strike on one of the facilities of the military-industrial complex of Ukraine. In combat conditions, one of the newest Russian medium-range missile systems was tested, amongst many other types of weapons. In this case, with a ballistic missile and a nuclear-free hypersonic equipment. Despite issuing the major threat to the West, Putin claimed the use of long-range missiles into Russia by Ukraine would not change the outcome of the war in Ukraine or their special operations. Moscow added, we will respond to any escalation. Russia has no more combat troops, folks, which is why they work to deal with North Korea to supply, at the current moment, 11,000 combat troops on the ground. So when you run out of troops because they're all being killed on the battlefield, you run out of aircraft, your bombers and fighter jets, because they're all being shot down over the battlefield. And you have no more tanks because they're all being blown up on the battlefield. What do you have left? Well, in this situation, in this war, Russia has nuclear weapons. And they continue to make threats of using nuclear weapons to end the world. We back this animal into a corner and we beat it and beat it and beat it. Actively, America and NATO forces are engaged in a war against Russia, regardless of what the Pentagon says, regardless of what anyone says. This is currently what is known as World War III. Now, nuclear weapons have not been launched yet. And let's pray that they do not get launched at any time in our lifetime or the lifetime of planet Earth for that matter. Because once one goes, what follows will be the end of civilization as we know it. And that is a very, very scary thing to think about. And sadly, there appears to be no one in Washington, D.C. willing to step up and stop Biden and Harris from dragging us into a nuclear Armageddon. No one's doing shit except Donald J. Trump. He has put together a team that is en route to Russia and Ukraine to broker some type of deal to stop this madness. And he has said, before he is sworn in on January 20th, Russia will have stopped their continued attack of killing hundreds of thousands of innocent men, women, and children and trying to take back the country of Ukraine. Trump has sent a team to do what Biden and Harris should have done 3 damn years ago, but have not. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris' tenure has been a gift to terrorists across the Middle East. And they're not planning on leaving office without one final reminder of that fact. Biden's United States Agency for International Development announced it would shovel out another $230 million U.S. taxpayer dollars into Gaza to support economic recovery and development programs. The agency boasted that it had spent $600 million of your dollars in economic support funding for the Palestine people since 2001 and over $2.1 billion in humanitarian assistance since October 7th of 2023. And how much of that money went to do anything to help the people of Gaza or Palestine or anywhere on the West Bank? It all went into the hands of terrorists. The $600 million, the $2.1 billion, and the soon to be released $230 more million U.S. taxpayer dollars. Yes, you heard that correctly. U.S. aid is celebrating giving $2.1 billion to Gaza since October 7th, specifically, which is when Palestine terrorists slaughtered 1,200 Israeli citizens and took hundreds of people hostage. Let that be a lesson to terrorists everywhere. Mass terrorist attacks where Americans are among the murdered and abducted get you billions in U.S. taxpayer dollars, at least under Democrat leadership. Biden then gave one final kick in the teeth to Israel as he heads to retirement, handing down sanctions on Monday against Israelis associated with what Biden views as illegal settlements in the West Bank. At the urging of the anti-Semitic Democrats, Biden chose to reaffirm the view that Israel is provoking terrorist violence by slapping Israeli people and companies with sanctions. It took another day for Biden's State Department to announce sanctions against 6 Hamas leaders. It is a perfect encapsulation of how Biden treats terrorists. First, sends civilian aid that everyone knows is stolen and used by Hamas for their own terrorist activities. Second, punish Israel. Doing anything to try and kneecap the actual terrorist only comes later as an afterthought. Biden's presidency has been fantastic for terrorists, and not just the ones he has funded and legitimized in Gaza. Biden botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, saw the Taliban retake the country along with $7 billion in U.S. military equipment that Biden left behind. Biden unfroze $6 billion in Iranian funds as a ransom payment for hostages. He removed the terrorist designation for the Houthis immediately after taking office, a decision he had to walk back after his weakness emboldened the group to terrorize commercial ships in the Red Sea that our U.S. Navy is fighting as I speak. Even Biden's decision in other policy areas have benefited terrorists. His open border policies on immigration have allowed terrorists to join the flow of unvetted illegal immigrants crossing the border and disappearing into our country. Biden's lasting foreign policy legacy will be that he left terrorist organizations stronger than they were when he took office. Between his weakness and incompetence, Biden has wasted billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars on aid or equipment that ended up in the hands of terrorists while demonstrating that he had no spine to oppose them in any real way. Biden's presidency was better for terrorists than perhaps any other group of people on planet Earth. And they will miss him when he leaves office in January. What Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done is treason. There is no other word for it. It is treason to aid and abet the enemy. Treason. Leaving the Taliban with billions of dollars of U.S. military equipment and giving billions of dollars to Iran, the number one sponsor of terrorism on planet Earth, and billions into Gaza to fall into the hands of Hamas is treason. That's what it is. And he should be charged accordingly. Now, let's switch gears for a minute and talk about how any of you that are watching this program tonight, if you're white, you're a racist bigot. Did you know that? If you oppose DEI, you're the problem. During a hearing on dismantling of the DEI Act, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's where we hire people based on their sexual orientation, such as gay, lesbian, queer, trans, but not straight, and the color of their skin, such as black or brown, but not white, over a straight white person that's fully qualified for the job opening. No matter your education, no matter your training, no matter if you're completely qualified, if there is a person that is not a straight white person, that's unqualified, they get the job over the qualified person. That's what this DEI shit is about. During this hearing, Democrat Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett got her panties in a wad and stuck in her ass crack and became upset during a hearing yesterday, which led her to rant about how white men were never oppressed in the United States. And she went out of her way to prove that she is the racist bigot. And Congress, by the way, is the last place on earth that this woman should be in. During the House Oversight Committee hearing about the Dismantle DEI Act, which seeks to weaken diversity, equity, and inclusion in activities, Crockett responded to a Republican colleague championing the bill as a strong response to the oppression of our rights, liberties, and freedoms. Crockett strongly rejected to Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana using the word oppression. You consistently said over and over the word oppression. Every time that you said it, it was almost as if I was hearing nails on a chalkboard, because it seems like you don't understand the definition of oppression. And I'd ask you to just refer to Google to help you out. Oppression is prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. That is the definition of oppression, she yelled. And so, as I sit here as a Black woman who practiced civil rights, let me tell you the reason that my colleagues wanted to make sure you understood the same Black history that your side of the aisle wants to delete out of our classroom is because you can then misuse words like oppression. Crockett argued white men in the United States have faced oppression because they did not face oppression because they weren't forced off their lands and sent to a foreign country as slaves. There have been no oppression of white men in this country. You tell me which white men are dragged out of their homes. You tell me which one of them got dragged all the way across an ocean and told that you're going to work here now. We're going to steal your wives. We're going to rape your wives. That didn't happen. That is oppression, Crockett said. We didn't ask to be here. We're not the same migrants that y'all constantly come up against. We didn't run away from home. We were stolen. So yeah, we're going to sit here and be offended when you want to sit here and act like, and don't let it escape you, that it is white men on this side of the aisle telling us, people of color on this side of the aisle, that y'all are the ones being oppressed and that y'all are the ones being harmed. That's not the definition of oppression. You tell me be prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment that you've had, and then we can have a conversation. Crockett pointed to how white men only comprise of 30% of the country's population, but hold over 60% of elected offices. That's our problem? I can't even tell you how many white men have served in this chamber, but I can tell you that I'm only the 55th Black woman to be elected to Congress. And so, when you want to talk about history and pretend that it was so long ago, it wasn't, she said. Because again, I'm just number 55. She concluded her remarks by claiming companies with more diversity workforces are more likely to outperform their competitors. Diversity works, she said, and you can only show me data that says otherwise. I think that we need to go back to being a country that listens to experts and gets out of our feelings and recognizes again that racism is real in this country. And until we stop pretending that it's not, we will not solve the problems that we're constantly facing. And that will bring real unity that we seek when we're looking for a more perfect union, she said. Now, I know that any liberal or Democrat that's watching tonight's show that just heard what I shared with you is going to come out and say that that's all bullshit, and no black woman that's a Democrat in Congress, especially from Texas, would say anything like that. And you're just making all this shit up, Doug, and you're the real racist bigot. Look at your skinhead. You look just like those neo-Nazis. So I figured that I would go ahead and share her rant with you, and we can just sit back and all listen to it, because it's so wonderful hearing them being exposed for who they really are.
Oppression, and every time that you said it, it was almost as if I was hearing nails on a chalkboard, because it seems like you don't understand the definition of oppression, and I'd ask you to just refer to Google to help you out. Oppression is the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. That is the definition of oppression. And so as I sit here as a black woman who practiced civil rights, let me tell you, the reason that my colleagues wanted to make sure you understood the same black history that your side of the aisle wants to delete out of classrooms is because you can then misuse words like oppression. There has been no oppression for the white man in this country. You tell me which white men were dragged out of their homes. You tell me which one of them got dragged all the way across an ocean and told that you are going to go and work. We are going to steal your wives. We are going to rape your wives. That didn't happen. That is oppression. We didn't ask to be here. We're not the same migrants that y'all constantly come up against. We didn't run away from home. We were stolen. So yeah, we are going to sit here and be offended when you want to sit here and act like, and don't let it escape you that it is white men on this side of the aisle telling us, people of color on this side of the aisle, that y'all are the ones being oppressed, that y'all are the ones that are being harmed. That's not the definition of oppression. You tell me the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment that you've had, and we can have a conversation.
You can start with Exodus.
The final thing that I will say on this particular issue, two things. There is an article from The Guardian, and it is a little old. It's from 2021, so I apologize. But it said that back then, just 3 years ago, white men represent 30% of the population, but 62% of office holders. These are the issues that we are constantly looking at and recognizing and trying to say, is this just? I can't even tell you how many white men have served in this chamber, but I can tell you that I am only the 55th black woman to be elected to Congress. And so when you want to talk about history and pretend as if it was so long ago, it wasn't. Because again, I am just number 55. Finally, when we start to talk about what do these numbers do, as we're trying to say the diversity, equity, and inclusion is the problem, the reality is that when it comes to financial performance, companies with more diverse workforces are more likely to outperform their competitors. Companies in the top quartile for racial diversity are 35% more likely to outperform their peers on profitability. Companies with diverse executive teams are 25% more likely to generate greater profits. Diverse companies earn 2.5 times higher cash flow per employee. Diversity works. And until you can show me data that says otherwise, I think that we need to go back to being a country that listens to experts and gets out of our feelings and recognizes again that racism is real in this country. And until we stop pretending that it's not, we will not solve the problems that we are consistently facing. And that will bring real unity that we seek when we're looking for a more perfect union.
Oh, Miss Crockett, Miss Crockett, Miss Crockett. Wow. Where do I begin to dismantle your racist bigotry how about we talk about DEI / racist bigotry, racism that we can see that's actually happening. Miss Crockett, you ever heard of Jussie Smollett? Yeah. He is the black gay man who, because of DEI, moved up the ranks in Hollywood and did some things. And he showed his true colors when it came to racist. And the Illinois Supreme Court today overturned Jussie Smollett's hate crime hoax conviction. Today, we'll resolve a question about the state's responsibility to honor the agreements it makes with defendants, the court wrote. Specifically, we address whether a dismissal of a case allows the state to bring a second prosecution when the dismissal was entered as part of an agreement with the defendant and the defendant has performed his part of the bargain. We hold that a second prosecution under these circumstances is a due process violation, and we therefore reverse defendant's conviction. Smollett, who is black and gay, reported to Chicago police that he was the victim of a racist and homophobic attack by two men wearing ski masks back in January of 2019. Charges against Smollett were originally dropped after special prosecutor Kim Racist Fox requested a new inquiry. The Empire Star was convicted of 5 felony counts and later sentenced to 150 days in county jail. The Illinois Supreme Court decided Thursday that the special prosecutor's decision to retry Smollett on charges violated his rights. Today, we resolve a question about the state's responsibility to honor the agreements it makes with defendants, Mark Garicos, Smollett's lawyer, said. We hold that second prosecution under these circumstances in a due process violation, and we therefore reverse defendant's conviction. Now, first, Kim Fox refused to prosecute. Not only did he fake a hate crime against a black gay man, but he went a step further and said that they were yelling MAGA and that they were Trump supporters. And they put a noose around his neck and they beat him up. Then they let him go. And then, of course, because of video cameras all over the freaking place, cops were able to locate the two guys that did this. And see in the video that it didn't appear that the actions that were taken, well, it appeared to be staged, because it was. And then those two guys admitted that the whole thing was staged, that Jussie Smollett set this up and paid them as actors for this fake hate crime. And then when Jussie Smollett got home that night and called 911 and the police show up, this is an hour after the incident took place, they arrive and think something's really weird here because he's still wearing the noose around his neck. It's not tied tight where he can't get it off. Oh no, it's just around his neck. He's just wearing it like a fucking chain. He's just wearing the noose. And then over time, his entire story fell apart. And Kim Foxx, the DA, who's also black, dropped everything. Wasn't going to do shit about it. She likes him. And was friends with his family members and friends with him. Just going to let him off scot-free. And that's where the state came in and went, time the fuck out here. You can't do that. This guy tried to divide this country on racial grounds and political grounds and made up this entire hoax to make it look like Trump supporters are a bunch of racist bigots that go around attacking innocent black gay men. And oh, by the way, the two guys that he hired to do this were black. Not American black. They were from like Haiti. So the state came in and said, you know what? This is not how the criminal justice system is supposed to work. And we're going to take over this case. And they did. And they charged him accordingly. And sent him to prison. And then he was allowed to be released until his day in court came about. And as we're getting closer and closer to his day of reckoning, the state Supreme Court steps in and says basically it's double jeopardy. Well, no, it's not double jeopardy. A mistake, a major mistake, a mistake that goes against our criminal justice system took place by DA Fox. So they made sure that the criminal justice system actually worked because she made sure it didn't in this case. So if this is double jeopardy, and that's how the state of Illinois sees this, well, are y'all going to be asking the federal government, although the child molester's dead, going to be asking the federal government to step in and vindicate, Mr. Pedo that had his own island that was grooming children to be his sex slaves because they let him off the hook, basically. Slapped him on the hand, made him pay some fines, and let him walk after doing just minimum jail time. Then the federal government comes along and says, time the fuck out. No. That's not how the justice system is supposed to work. And they were going to retry him. They arrested the man. They put him in federal prison. And then supposedly he hanged himself. You all know who I'm talking about, right? Jeffrey Epstein. So is the Supreme Court of Illinois going to reach out to the federal government and say, you violated his rights by charging him and putting him in prison? What's the difference? And that's just one of thousands of cases across this country where justice was not served and states and or federal government stepped in and went wrong. No, you're not going to violate our justice system, turn it into a two-tier piece of shit. It's because of actions like this with the Smollett case, that kind of bullshit and the DEI bullshit we're talking about tonight, that got Donald Trump back in office to fix this broken system that we have. And as far as I'm concerned, it can't happen fast enough. We have watched the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, go rogue. We've watched the Department of Justice go rogue and allow Democrats and liberals to walk, Republicans and conservatives to have the book thrown at them. We're watching grandparents that happen to be up at the Capitol on January 6th that didn't even go in the Capitol getting prison time, while the liberal Antifa and BLM members that looted and robbed and raped and pillaged and burned down cities and police departments and police cars walk free. That's why there was a massive red wave, not only the Electoral College by leaps and bounds, but the popular vote by leaps and bounds, and taking back the Senate and keeping the House and expanding on the numbers. Because of shit like this. Now, let's go back to Ukraine for a moment. You're going to love this shit. The Biden administration told Congress today it plans to cancel $4.65 billion in debt owed by Ukraine, approximately half of the economic loan offered earlier this year. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller confirmed the plans in a briefing. So, we have taken the step that was outlined in the law to cancel those loans, provide that economic assistance to Ukraine, he said. In April, Congress passed a supplemental funding package that earmarked $60 billion worth of aid for Ukraine, including $9 billion structured as a loan, with a provision that allowed the administration to forgive it. I want to know, when Speaker Mike Johnson said Ukraine's not getting another fucking penny unless we can close our border and spend the same amount of money to secure our border and save American lives, I want to know if they knew this was in this deal that they worked out. No extra money went to the border. Republicans caved and allowed Biden to send this $60 billion. And in it was a provision that allowed him to forgive it if he wanted to. That's your money, America. Miller added that Congress could pass a resolution on disapproval to overturn the cancellation. Representative Thomas Massey, Republican Kentucky, introduced such a resolution today. Senator Rand Paul, Republican Kentucky, immediately said he would introduce a resolution to block the measure. Such a resolution is unlikely to pass as currently the Democrats control the Senate, and President Biden could veto it. The supplemental funding package gave the administration the power to forgive 50% of the loan, and the remaining 50% could be forgiven after January 2026. On his way out, Joe Biden is trying to forgive $4.65 billion of debt Ukraine owes American taxpayers. I just introduced HJ Resolution 224 to stop this America Last policy from taking effect, Massey posted on X. Congress has appropriated more than $175 billion for Ukraine since Russia's invasion back in February of 2022. Biden has gone into overdrive to assist Ukraine in the weeks since President-elect Trump won the election. After months of hesitation, the president authorized Ukraine to use U.S.-provided long-range missiles to strike into Russia this week, as we know. Shortly thereafter, he allowed them to use anti-personnel landmines, which supposedly is against the Geneva Convention, but not according to this administration, which drew the ire of human rights groups. The Biden administration said the decision was made after Russia brought in 10,000 troops from North Korea to fight in the war in Ukraine. Biden has also vowed to commit the remaining $7 billion from the supplemental package to Ukraine before he leaves office. This past Tuesday, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced $275 million for Ukraine that would include more drones, artillery ammunition, and mortars. Trump allies have accused Biden of escalating the war on his way out the door for politics. Other hawkish lawmakers said it's long overdue step. Earlier this month, Biden also approved U.S. military contractors. Now, let me back up. I want you to listen very closely to this line. Earlier this month, Biden also approved U.S. military contractors to go into Ukraine to help the country maintain and repair all U.S.-made weapon systems that we've given them. So how many Americans you think are going to be dying here soon with these Russia attacks that are starting to increase drastically? Did you know that we just closed our embassy there in Ukraine? We don't want them to get injured, but fuck the U.S. contractors. It's unclear whether Trump will keep such policies in place when he takes office, though he has suggested he believes he could end the war in 24 hours at the negotiating table with Ukrainian president and the Russian president. Hey, we won, Republicans. We got the House, the Senate, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And this administration on their way out the door is going to do everything in their power to just continue to fuck up this country. Everything they've touched in the past almost 4 years now, they have broken. And damn it, they're on a roll to make damn sure they break as much shit as they can on the way out the door. Speaking of on the way out the door, you all know who Ellen DeGeneres is, right? Actress, talk show host, lesbian. Well, her and her lesbian friend, or lover, or wife, or whatever she is. I don't want to misgender somebody or misspeak on their pronouns. Yes, I do. They're the first ones that threatened that if Trump won, they would leave America. And guess what? They are. That's right. They are moving to the UK. Well, I hope that they take with them all their liberal Hollywood friends that have also threatened to leave if Trump won. Get out and don't let the door hit you in your fat ass on the way out, because you're not wanted here. We, the people, have spoken, and we have determined who the real threat to democracy is. It wasn't Donald J. Trump. It's the Democrat Party that I used to belong to. They are the real threat to the United States of America. Make no bones about it. The International Criminal Court rejected challenges from Israel and issued arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, and former defense minister today. The International Court charged them with crimes against humanity and war crimes, including using starvation as a method of warfare and targeting civilians. Israeli President Isaac Herzog condemned the move in a statement today. Taken in bad faith, the outrageous decision at the ICC has turned universal justice into a universal laughingstock. It makes a mockery out of the sacrifices of all those who fight for justice, for the Allied victory over the Nazis till today, he wrote. He argued that the ICC's decision ignores Hamas' use of human shields and its October 7th, 2023 terror attack that started the war, as well as the Israel hostages and American hostages remaining in Gaza. Indeed, the decision has chosen to side with terrorists and evil over democracy and freedom and turn the very system of justice into a human shield for Hamas terrorists, crimes against humanity, he added. The International Criminal Court can go fuck themselves, because no one, to include America, is going to do anything to help you go arrest these two people that have been fighting for their very existence since Nazi Germany tried to eradicate them off the planet. No one. In fact, the members and leadership of the ICC, they need to be charged. Terrorists do not get to run our country anymore. And hopefully, enough people on planet Earth will wake up and stop paying attention to the liberal white college students running around supporting Hamas in Iran. And hopefully, under Trump's administration, they will put those little fuckers in jail where they belong. I don't give a shit if you're an 18-year-old, wet behind the ears, college kid. If you're wearing Hamas headgear and scarves, protesting on our college campuses, your little ass needs to go to fucking prison because you are a terrorist, plain and simple. You had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me. And for that, I'm forever grateful. I thank you very, very much for joining me tonight. I'll be back next Tuesday for another live broadcast of the show. I will be taking off Thursday for Thanksgiving. So we'll be back the following Tuesday to pick back up. If anything breaks between now and Tuesday, I'll do a video about it, or I will come on and do a live program about it. I can only hope and keep my fingers crossed and pray to God that nothing that I think is about to happen is going to happen. Because it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good at all. In fact, it's going to be hell on earth. I hope that those that Donald Trump has sent to Russia and to Ukraine were able to broker this deal and end this World War III and possible nuclear holocaust that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has put us in. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe, whether you're watching me tonight on YouTube or Rumble or X or LinkedIn. In the description of this show and all my shows and all my videos, you can see the places you can follow me on other social media platforms. Please follow me there. I'll follow you back. That's how we do this. Continue to spread the word and let people know about what's happening, not only in America, but across the globe. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders, their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless each and every one of you. I'll see you back here next Tuesday. Hope you all have a wonderful and blessed evening. Friday's right around the corner in just a few more hours. And I hope whatever you're doing this weekend, you have fun, you're safe, and I'll see you back here on Tuesday. Good night, everybody, and God bless you.